We are next going to have a social media panel led by our own Bryn Crispin, who is our social media manager, and she'll discuss ways so that we can optimize our reach on social media in the pro-life movement. So, Bryn?
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you all for coming today. Thanks for everyone watching online. I'm very excited about this panel. This is a topic that's I'm very passionate about, and I'm hoping that we can really shed light on these tools to help you all be digital activists. Social media is a very powerful tool. It's something that can easily lift people up or tear people down. So it's very important as pro-life activists that we learn how to use this tool that we've been given very well. And so we'll be discussing just different ways that we can use this tool. We may have some time for questions at the end, so be thinking of those throughout. But I'm happy to be joined by two fellow social media activists and experts with me. I have Lindsay Fifield here from the Heritage Foundation. She's the social media manager there. And Andrew Moore is the digital and creative director for Susan B. Anthony List. So thank you both for joining us.
So excited.
Thanks for having us.
Andrew, I'll start with you. I know you were born and raised in New Zealand, which is where your awesome accent comes from.
Thank you.
You've been part of the pro-life movement first over there and now over here, so for quite a while. What's a social media tool that you have found to be most effective?
Well, the tool that I would have to say is the most effective overall for my purposes is Twitter. I find that we are able to, for my group, Susan B. Anthony List, we're able to activate our supporters, and they're able to engage directly with the legislators. And the legislators really are checking their Twitter feeds, very regularly. I understand, when they get out of a committee meeting, for instance, they'll pull up their phone and have a look at what's happening on Twitter. And so it's really good. And you've got the phone call, you've got the email, but the thing with Twitter is it's public record. You can't dispute how many people are taking action on a certain issue. So I really like that element about it as well. Yeah.
And as I said, social media is a very powerful tool. It's something that's very changing. And some of us, like we said, we both have been in our jobs for each 2 years now. So we've seen those changes, and especially this last year in 2017, we saw a lot of changes with Facebook's algorithm, Twitter introducing some new policies. So Lindsay, can you talk about just some of the changes that you've seen in Facebook, and how can we, as social media activists, be aware of those changes?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're absolutely right. We have seen a lot of changes, especially across all social platforms, but especially with Facebook. And I think as much as it's easy to get discouraged about those things, especially because whenever there's a change, whenever there's something that we're used to, it gets a little bit uncomfortable. But I think it's really important for us to stay positive, not get discouraged or worry about the changes, and just kind of adapt to them. And so what we've been doing at Heritage, we've adapted and started doing more video. I think video is really important because then you have a chance to go out on the street. We have Genevieve Wood at the Heritage Foundation who does that for us. And she actually goes out and, we can actually talk one-on-one to people on the street. I think that's a great way to get through the algorithmic changes that they've been making that kind of do keyword searches or that kind of suppression. You can just, you're turning on a Facebook Live, you reach your audience directly. I think the biggest, most encouraging change that Facebook has made is it's no longer just the power of the publishers and the organizations. They've actually really put the power back to the individual. And so when we share things and we actually engage with content in our social media feeds and across Facebook, it actually has more power than even the Heritage Foundation. So when we really try to encourage our followers to share our posts, like our posts, but also have their own conversations about it, so that the reach is actually even more powerful than ours.
Definitely. Yeah, and as Ryan Bomberger said earlier today, it's a way for us as conservatives to kind of circumvent mainstream media sometimes, that if they're not reporting a story that we think is very important, or if they're suppressing something that we think is because of the message itself, it's very important for us to have a tool that we can use to kind of still be able to tell people about it and get the story out there. So Andrew, I know, so Twitter, there have been a few stories this past year of Twitter either suppressing content or blocking content. Marsha Blackburn was with us earlier this morning, and she actually had a Twitter ad blocked last year for her Planned Parenthood investigations. And they restored that a day later after pro-lifers kind of lashed out and said, hey, this isn't fair. So what can we do as pro-life activists if we feel like our content is being suppressed unfairly?
Yeah, well, one thing we can do is we can work together to, get all instances of Twitter censorship and make sure, as Lindsay was saying earlier, before this actually, to take screenshots of instances where they are being unfair in that way. And so we need to do that, and we need to work together and compile these together and then present it to Twitter or whatever social media network it is, and also get it in front of the media as well. And I think it really is going to be so much more effective if it's not just one group or just one activist, but several working together. It's going to give that story a lot more legs. Yeah.
Yeah, cool things that we were able to watch with Marsha Blackburn is that, all these pro-life groups on Twitter came together and said, we're all together, we want this message to be heard. You're not blocking it for truly sensitive material. It was simply because it was a pro-life message. And so it's pretty awesome to see all of us coming together. So keep that in mind if you feel like your message is being suppressed, that you're not alone, and there are a band of people who are willing to help you fight for that message.
Twitter sees that it's super counterintuitive for them to suppress this content now, because she probably got more attention because they'd suppressed her tweets than they would have gotten with the ad, because Twitter ads are terrible. So your tweets can organically do a lot more than a paid ad anyway.
I would just jump in there and say not all Twitter ads are terrible.
Ours are great.
There's a particular Twitter ad format that we've had really good success with, which is the conversation ad format. And the really great thing I find with that is that you're putting out an ad, and instead of just seeing the ad or clicking on a link to a website, people are actually engaging directly on Twitter, and that's what you're paying for. So we've had good success putting out ads saying, contact your representative and tell him to vote on this, or to stop blocking, a Supreme Court nominee or something like this. And so it's a really good way to generate targeted, focused engagements exactly where you want them, and directly on Twitter, and without having to kind of send people to some external web page and then they fill out a form and then it goes back to Twitter. So yeah, we really like that. Yeah.
And to go back to what we were saying earlier about suppression on Twitter, I think it's really important not just to take the screenshots, but also, send them to people like us. If you feel like your reach isn't large and you feel you're not crazy, this is really happening. We see it every day. We see content that's suppressed. I'm sure you guys have seen maybe examples if you scroll through your Twitter feed and you see in replies to main brand tweets, tweets that say, this content's not available, or click to show this content because it's sensitive content. 9 times out of 10, if you actually click that, you think, oh, I don't want to click that because it's going to be something crude. 9 times out of 10, when I've clicked those comments, it's nothing crude. It's just regular conservatives engaging in content. It's really happening. We're not crazy. And so take screenshots of things like that. Send them to us if you feel like, and I can show you afterwards if we have time maybe, or people can just come up to us after, and I can show you guys in the settings too how you can kind of prevent them from suppressing your content, but also from suppressing you from seeing other people's content as well.
We say send them to us. One of the easiest way to do that is just direct message on Twitter. So just follow our accounts and direct message us, and we check those daily. So we'll see your message. Yeah,
be gentle. Yeah.
And one thing, if your message isn't getting blocked or suppressed, another thing that could happen is it could easily get distorted. And we see this a lot in the pro-life movement, whether it's the mainstream media or pro-abortion activists. A lot of times they take our words and they can twist them, and suddenly it's national news and someone's saying something that they never said, or it's very easily misconceived in a different way. So one of the biggest things, I know, Lindsay, this is what you're passionate about, is just the truth about Planned Parenthood. And a lot of people say they really do great things for women, or another one is pro-lifers only care about humans after they're born. Or before they're born, before they're born, but not after they're born. So what's a way that we can kind of combat those stereotypes, but in a loving and truthful way.
Oh, and the fact is, and we all know this, the arguments from pro-choicers wither on the vine in the face of the truth, and we're armed with the truth. And so I think you just put those facts out there, especially when it comes to Planned Parenthood. Our facts come from their annual report, so we're not making this stuff up. This is in their own reports, and so presenting those facts to people, it really does surprise people. What we've seen, especially in polling now, is that a majority of Americans support abortion restrictions. Even if they consider themselves pro-choice, they actually have pro-life views. They just don't know it because there is just such a confluence of misinformation out there. And so we have a great opportunity, and we should be excited about it. We shouldn't be mean-spirited when we're coming out with these facts. We should absolutely just be confident putting them out there and saying, look, these are the facts. If you want to argue them or debate them or discuss them, that's great, but this is from their own report. We're not distorting these numbers. These are the numbers that they're putting out there. And I think just being confident in that, it really helps your argument. You'll notice that they kind of shift their arguments as you present them with facts, because once you've killed one of their arguments, they have to keep moving on. And so I think online it's easy to kind of, especially for just not on our brands, I wouldn't do this from like the Heritage brand, but from a personal perspective, when you're in a conversation, to keep things moving. But it's important to just kind of step back, not let them get you rattled, and just stay optimistic and stay positive and just stand in the truth of the facts.
Andrew, did you have anything to add?
Well, I don't know if it's really on topic, but you're talking about discussions and comment threads on social media. I think okay. So when I first kind of got into the pro-life movement, I was very heavily into having very long debates on social media with people who disagreed with me, and then after a while I realized it was pretty fruitless, and so I pretty much completely stopped doing it. However, I've recently come to a kind of conclusion. I think there is value to it, but it should be focused on the existing threads of prominent individuals or our pro-life heroes in Congress, because just for an example, I'll see a tweet from Speaker Ryan, and he'll tweet something out, saying he's pro-life and he supports the right to life for unborn babies. The number of comments, just hateful, vitriolic comments directed at him, on a range of subjects, not just abortion, people just unloading on them, just thousands of them. And I have to say, there's not enough, pushback from pro-lifers on these comment threads. So I think if you really want to kind of satisfy that desire to get into endless debates online, there's a good place to do it, because these legislators, honestly, they only have so much political capital, and they're really sticking their necks out and representing us when they say these things on social media. And so it's our responsibility, frankly, to back them up when they stick their necks out. So.
That's such a great point.
That is a good point.
We do
usually go after the figures on the left that are being dishonest, but we never really do think, hey, we should go, and that's such a great point.
If I may just a little bit more on them, quite passionate about this, but believe it or not, the men and women on Capitol Hill, they're human beings just like us, and they have emotions just like us, and if they feel confident that when they speak up on whatever platform it is, that there will be their friends and allies standing behind them and echoing them and backing them up and saying, the congressman is correct, and here's a study that I can post here, because maybe the congressman or his staffers don't have time to add that additional research, but that's a very key role that we can play.
And they need a lot of encouragement. So that is another thing that Twitter is very helpful for, is that you can just use their handle, and they'll, maybe not them themselves, but their staff will see that they're getting support, and it is very encouraging. It does make a difference.
Coming from staffers, we can say we really like seeing those nice comments, because we see a lot of not nice comments every day, so please do.
Yeah, and Andrew mentioned, a tactic of arguing with people on social media, debating people, can be your tactic if you feel like you're really getting somewhere, but if not, there are a lot of other ways that you can push the message out there in a loving and a compassionate way. And two things that really play in our favor are science and technology. And social media has done a great way of just highlighting new developments in science and technology. We have ultrasounds, we have there's this project in London called the iFind project, and they're using MRI scans overlapped with ultrasounds to show babies' movement in very detailed pictures. And one of them was posted last year and went viral immediately. It was a little 20-week-old baby jumping and pulling on the umbilical cord, and just things that very easily humanize an unborn baby. So just simply finding those things and sharing it on Instagram or on Twitter is very helpful. Did you guys have anything to add just on new developments that you're excited about or just looking forward to using in this coming year?
Want to take that, or you want me to?
Yeah. Well, I'll just say something very briefly, which in terms of the proliferation of ultrasound imagery on social media, I think the most important thing, I mean, it's been happening for, the proliferation of ultrasound imagery has been happening, I don't know, for 20 years or something, with people putting it on their fridge. But now more and more, as soon as a couple is pregnant and willing to share about the pregnancy, bam, up it goes on Facebook. And so I think that people are starting to identify with unborn children better and earlier on than ever before. So I think that's incredibly valuable.
I think that's why we see such a powerful passion in the younger generation coming up, because I think, well, I'm only 32, but the older generation that didn't have access to these accurate, I mean, we can see in the sonograms down to their facial features. It's so powerful. And so that's all that they've ever known. And, these advances just keep getting stronger and stronger. So yeah, absolutely. And I think to your point about the way that people talk about these issues online, Instagram's such a powerful platform for that reason, because you don't even have to have an overtly pro-life message. You don't have to have like, hey, here's me at the March for Life. It can just be you sharing images of your children before they're born, or sharing a heartfelt story about a time that you were worried or concerned, or your personal story being shared is more powerful in some ways than just being an activist, especially if you're really trying to change hearts and minds of people who, like I said earlier, think that they're pro-choice but don't realize they actually have a lot of pro-life views, and those are the people that we have the biggest opportunity to reach. And so just being an optimistic witness to those people is so important.
And it is kind of cool to see even celebrities like Beyonce or the HGTV star Joanna Gaines shared that she announced she was pregnant by showing an Instagram video of her tiny little baby's heartbeat and just saying, how cool is this? And just those little things are not, they're not combative, they're not in your face, they're just, look at this scientific research that shows this is a human being. So that's good. So I would encourage you all to just keep that in mind as you're sharing things. You don't have to do it in a debate or a combative way, but just sharing new research is extremely helpful. One thing I'd like to talk about a little bit, just going off of how this new science and technology is influencing the pro-life movement. We've really seen an increase in the younger generation who I think is taking this research and it's really resonating. And just having those images available has really helped open the eyes of the younger generation, and we're now saying the younger generation is the most pro-life that it's ever been, and so that is extremely exciting. How do you think social media is playing a role into kind of convincing the younger generation to be pro-life? Andrew, go ahead.
Oh, sure. Well, I mean, I think it's got a lot to do with what we were talking about before, which is just it's being talked about a lot more and in more relatable terms. That's probably all I have on that one.
And they're just so optimistic. They're so passionate, and I think that's the thing, that they're younger. They're not cynical like us old people, and so I think that they actually are the best messengers for this. So it's great for them.
And real quick, we just have a minute left. What is one thing in 2018 that people watching at home can look forward to, and you would encourage them to either keep doing or do something new to advance the pro-life movement on social media this year?
Oh, goodness.
Well, I've got one idea, which is it can be easy to just kind of have tunnel vision on the abortion issue, and or other socially conservative issues, and that's all you talk about on your social media. And I think people, your friends on social media are going to tune out, and they will just, and of course the algorithm will notice that these people are tuning out and not engaging or not pausing as they scroll to engage with your content, so they're going to see less and less of it. So it's really important to intersperse your more serious posts with, I think humor is great, and just pop culture if you can stand it, and just things like this to keep people engaged. Yeah, be human, be relatable, exactly, because you will have so much more influence on your Facebook friends, and I'm talking primarily about Facebook, but it's probably true for other social networks, if people can relate to you before you hit them with the hard truth. So that's something I try to do, and I've seen pretty good success, and I'd encourage others to as well. Yeah.
How about you, Lindsay?
That's exactly. I mean, and also just be optimistic. There's no reason for us. It's easy to be mean-spirited when they're being mean-spirited when other people are attacking you. But just be an optimistic, happy person. Be a happy warrior. We have a lot to be excited about. The science and facts are on our side. Don't be discouraged. And when you're talking to other people, just always maintain a good, positive attitude. And I think that's how we win.
Awesome. Yeah, and the pro-life movement, like we'll hear a lot today, is founded in love and compassion. So keep that in mind as you're messaging everything on your social media sites. So thank you so much for joining us, and we'll send it back to Sarah.
Thanks, all of you. Great.